It's been about 12 years since we've seen anything from the GM portfolio carrying the Hummer badge, and for Hummer's glorious return, GMC has decided to take over the naming for this brand. That's right, Hummer is no longer a standalone brand in the GM portfolio, and for their first model ever, the electric super truck has some pretty impressive specs. First of all, this truck is introducing their new Ultium battery technology platform. It has over 350 miles of range, up to 1,000 horsepower when you guys engage the launch control, and because it's a Hummer, when you jack up the air suspension, it will offer up to 16 inches of total ground clearance. So as you can see this week, we've finally gotten our hands on the 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup truck. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests. We're going to 0 to 60 test this thing. We're also going to test out the real world range. And at the end of this video, I'm going to find out, has GMC truly managed to create a special electric super truck? Stay tuned to find out. Now, Hummers have always been about bold, in-your-face designs, and as you can see, this model here carries on with that tradition. But before we start talking about the exterior styling, I want to show you guys what a modern Hummer can now offer. Because this thing is now electric, there is no more internal combustion engine. Instead, we have a massive frunk that offers up to 11.5 cubic feet of storage space. Now, as you guys also saw, the power hood, or the hood, is also electrically actuated. There is a little bit of a pressure pad right here that you have to feel, that you can push to open and also close the front trunk. And like I said earlier, up to 11 cubic feet of total storage space. In fact, these bags here are for the translucent infinity roof sky panels. There are 4 of them where you can fit them perfectly into this front storage, or if you want to take those out, you can use this as a nice covered storage area that you typically never had in a pickup truck. But because we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs very quickly. Now, this vehicle here is unique to the Ultium platform because it has a double stacked battery, which means there are 2 layers of batteries, which is why this thing has the largest battery capacity that you could buy currently in a production vehicle. Up to 212.7 kilowatt hours. I believe only 200 of that is actually usable. That's right, this truck has a battery capacity that's roughly double that of the biggest battery in a lot of other vehicles, and bigger batteries than even the Rivian R1T and the Ford F-150 Lightning, which those vehicles are around 130 kilowatt hours. There's also 3 electric motors, 1 at the front, 2 at the back axle. This is how you're going to get the truck for now until GMC releases a lower price version that you can get in the 2X and I believe the 1X, which will have just dual motors. So all-wheel drive will be standard. However, the higher trims will have 3 electric motors, so it's a tri-motor vehicle running through a single-speed reduction gear transmission. 835 horsepower is what's available all the time. However, if you engage the watts to freedom WTF launch control, it'll actually unleash the full 1,000 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. That 1,200 pound-feet of torque is available all the time, but if you want 1,000 horsepower, you actually have to launch this thing, which we'll talk about the 0 to 60 times and the differences between WTF mode and just the standard drive mode settings. This vehicle also offers up to 329 miles of total range. That's what GMC estimates. I'll put it through my actual testing. We'll see what we can get in the real world. And in terms of charging, this will charge up to 350 kilowatts, which is necessary because this vehicle has a massive battery pack. And in terms of capability, the truck will tow a maximum of 7,500 pounds. It'll carry a maximum of 1,300 pounds on the payload. And in terms of 0 to 60, Hummer says that, or GMC says you'll get to 60 in 3 seconds with WTF engaged. We'll see if we can actually get that in the real world. And this is a heavy vehicle, mostly because of the battery pack. And as this one sits, without the spare tires in the bed weighing it down further, it weighs in at just a tick under 9,000 pounds, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But let's go ahead and close up the hood, and you can see, push that button. The hood will electrically shut for you, which does kind of move slowly. I also don't love the creaking sound it makes when you close the hood, but just take a look at the styling of this truck, guys. I mean, this thing literally says, "Get the F out of my way." It is so incredibly menacing to look at down the road. It also has beautiful, intricate lighting that just has so many theatrics, from the animations to the fact that it spells out Hummer in the front from the LED lighting. And this truck is also insanely wide, 86.7 inches wide. It's about almost 87 inches wide. It's about 5 inches wider than the old Hummer H2 and about 5 inches wider than a Chevy Silverado. So again, huge vehicle that really just takes up the entire road when you're driving this vehicle. Now, all of the Hummer EVs will come standard with their full LED headlights. You can see it's got a sequential LED daytime running light and turn signal. This is actually not the headlight. The headlight is actually down here in the lower bumper. There are no fog lights on this vehicle. And then, like I said, in the grille here, in each of the 7 slots, it's not open. Remember, this is an electric vehicle. It actually spells out Hummer through EVs. It looks very, very interesting. It looks really futuristic. I also love the kind of two-tone look here with the white paint, with the dark color on the bumpers. You can see you've got these massively huge, heavy-duty tow hooks there, recovery hooks. And then you can see there's this big, huge steel skid plate there, a bash plate. The entire vehicle is covered with underbody protection. That's all necessary when you're looking at a vehicle that has this kind of off-road capability. Now, like I said earlier, this is built off of their new Ultium platform. Although it is slightly unique, more unique to the Hummer, GMC or GM will basically expand the Ultium platform throughout several of their vehicles in the coming years. But for now, the pickup truck is a big vehicle. This comes in at around 216.7 inches in the overall length. This is about the same length as a Rivian R1T, but it's a little bit shorter than an F-150 Lightning. Its wheelbase is around 135.6 inches long. Keep in mind, compared to the old H2 sport utility truck, this is about a foot longer in every dimension in the overall length and in the wheelbase. And like I said earlier, the width is about 5 inches wider. If you want a smaller version of this truck, you can wait for the SUV, which is roughly about a foot shorter in its overall dimensions versus this vehicle, which also has the spare tire at the back of the SUV. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see these are a unique wheel, and everything about this truck is just beefy. Even the wheels, you can see it's got an 8-lug bolt pattern for the actual wheels. These are a 17-inch wheel wrapped in a 35-inch, I'm sorry, it's an 18-inch wheel wrapped in a 35-inch mud terrain Goodyear Wrangler Territory tire. This was specifically developed for the GMC Hummer EV. You can see the brakes are also massive. I believe they're 15 inches with a 4-piston, or maybe it's a 6-piston. I think it's a 4-piston caliper design. I couldn't find that actual spec. And right now I have the vehicle set in its increased ride height setting. Remember, this truck has an adjustable air suspension and it also has 4-wheel steering. Now, when it's in this increased ride height mode, you have about 12 inches of ground clearance. If you can also lower the truck down, it'll basically lower and raise itself about 2 inches between normal and an increased ride height. So in the lower settings, this will have roughly about 10 inches of ground clearance. If you guys wait for an over-the-air update, which this truck doesn't have yet, there'll be an extract mode that will basically increase the ground clearance by another 5 inches at low speeds, so you can get a maximum of just under 16 inches of ground clearance, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, looking over at the rest of the profile, you can see it spells out there's a Hummer HEV badge over here. We have these mirrors that have integrated cameras right here at the lower area. Surprisingly, no integrated turn signals on the actual mirrors. And then all of the H1 or the Edition 1 models will have their infinity roof with those removable panels. And then, oh, ignore that right there. There's a little bit of build quality issues I've been finding some around this truck as I've lived with it for a week. But overall, the rest of the profile you can see just looks really, really aggressive. It has just a really cool futuristic look, but it's also classically a Hummer in its overall design. Now, over here at the rear, you can see this is the charge port door. You can see it has the standard J1772 plug along with a DC fast charging as standard. GMC says if you can find a 350 kilowatt level 3 charger, this will basically be able to add around 100 miles of range in just 10 minutes. So theoretically, it's probably going to take around 40 minutes to go from 10 to 80%. Remember, this is a huge battery pack. If you find just a 150 kilowatt, that'll take about an hour and a half to go to 80%. So again, much longer charging times. The onboard charger for this truck is only 11.5 kilowatts, which means I had it plugged into my level 2 at home, and it said it would take around 16 hours to charge this truck from empty to full. That's roughly twice the amount of time that I expect most vehicles to charge on a level 2 charger. That's with a 48 amp. It's doing around 15 miles per hour. So again, I really wish that the onboard charger was faster. GM has a 19 kilowatt onboard charger available on the Lyriq. They really need to go ahead and put it on this truck so it doesn't take so long to charge this vehicle when you're just on a level 2. Now, this rear wheel here actually is capable of turning up to 10 degrees in either the same or opposite direction. There's also a really cool crab walk mode that you can kind of impress your friends with, where both front wheels will turn in the same direction, allowing this vehicle to go side to side like a crab. That's why they call it crab walk. But that's kind of like a theatric thing. Looking at the rest of the rear, you can see the tail lights. These are a really cool three-dimensional look with animation, full LED tail light. In fact, there was an article going around that apparently this tail light cost about $3,000 for just the part to replace. So in theory, with parts and labor for both tail lights, it would cost you $7,000 to replace. That's really a huge problem probably if you're an insurance company. But again, this is an expensive truck, so it doesn't surprise me that that piece right there would be expensive because of the animations it has, because of the LEDs and whatnot. You can see those massively beefy tow hooks or tow recovery points are again at the rear of the truck. Underneath here you can see the massive air suspension for the air bladders that allow it to raise and lower. There's the tow hitch I mentioned earlier. This will tow up to 7,500 pounds. And then just like a GMC Sierra, you have their multi-pro tailgate here, which you can see my tester also gives you the ability to fold that mid-gate down. You can also fold this down and have like a little bit of a step with a handle over there that helps you get into this truck bed, which is definitely necessary for shorter folks like myself. You can also get integrated speakers built in if you'd like. All of them come with this spray-in bed liner, which is very useful. There's also a 400-watt household power outlet in here, although it's not quite as intricate as the Pro Power on board that Ford offers on the Lightning. There's also a tonneau cover back here, which you can see the only way you open and close it is by pulling or pushing on that, and then you just kind of manually pull this out, which I kind of wish that this was more of a power outlet, but once this is closed up, you can see it's very sturdy. It also provides kind of a waterproof seal, but you can see once I close this and close this entirely, it's definitely going to provide that covered storage that you like. So overall, the bed is useful at 5 feet, but remember, payload capacity at 1,300 pounds is not very impressive. I've seen more capability out of something like a Ford Maverick. So let's go ahead and take a look at the interior for the 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup truck. Before we get inside the vehicle, let me show you guys the fob. And here is where some of my disappointment also begins, because this fob is exactly the same as what you're going to find in every other GM and Chevy product. It does say GMC Hummer EV on the back of the fob. It has your usual lock, unlock, remote start. You can also open up the liftgate and open up the front and use the panic. I just kind of wish that GMC had given the Hummer version its own unique key. That would have definitely added to the whole theatrics and made the truck feel a little bit special as you approach the vehicle. Now, as you can see, the door handles are pretty conventional. There's a button here to basically lock the door, and if you want to unlock it, you have to touch the back of the door handle again. The door handle doesn't have an actual sensor to unlock the vehicle. Now, looking at the cabin, you can see all of the Edition 1s come with this white exterior along with the Lunar Horizon interior that my tester has. They also will offer a Lunar Shadow at some point, but you can see it's kind of like a two-tone design. This is a faux leather material. It's a leatherette material. It also kind of feels too much like vinyl to me. I suspect this is very durable. It'll be water resistant. It'll be fade resistant. I like how the lower area here is black, while this has kind of like a lighter gray cream color, which looks nice. It's kind of carried over on the rest of the dash and the center console and the door panels. You can see the door panel has the same kind of interesting fake leather material, where again, it just doesn't feel quite as soft as I like it to, but at least it's nice and padded. You can see there are these tech bronze accents throughout the interior. You have two-person memory seats. The window controls, they feel typical GM. This is the same kind of window controls I've seen in the Silverado. And then the seats, they adjust with a 10-way power adjustment. These are also heated and ventilated seats. There's a nice little Hummer EV badge over here to show that this is, again, a special vehicle, although the seats themselves don't really look all that special compared to other GM products. You can see there's also a 14-speaker Bose premium sound system, which sounds good. It's a little bass heavy for my taste, but overall the interior kind of reminds me a lot of the Hummer H2, just brought up to a more modern status. Now, these rock rails here, these step rails, are nice and sturdy. They feel good, required for a vehicle that has up to 16 inches of ground clearance, but as I hoist myself up, this is with the truck in extract mode, or in terrain mode, so it's got increased ride height, about a foot of ground clearance. As I get in and shut the door has a solid sounding thunk, so that adds to the impression of quality. Now, when you want to start up the truck, the button to fire up everything is right here where you'd expect it to be. And surprisingly, it has the same GM bong. I would have liked to see them do its own unique chime for the Hummer EV, but in terms of the tech, it does look nice. You have a 12.3-inch full digital cluster here behind the steering wheel, and you also have a 13.4-inch full digital cluster here, which is running their new Android-based operating system. It has over-the-air updates, and as you can also see, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice, although I can't actually expand this to take up the entire screen. So the Apple CarPlay side is actually a little bit on the small side. And then there you can see there's another area here where you can do a split screen. I would have liked to see GM give us the option to do a full screen layout there, but that's kind of nitpicking. The screen itself, I do think it's large enough. But again, the black border around the screen could be, again, a little bit thinner to make this look a little bit more high-tech and cleaner. Now, sadly, where GMC really did cut corners for me is in the interior quality. It looks nice, and some of the metal pieces in here look like metal. However, when you actually start touching them, it feels very plasticky, and it just doesn't have a high-quality feel to it. The dashboard, you can see here, has a lot of hollow hard touch plastics. This is a somewhat soft touch injection molded area, but again, don't love the rubberized texture there that just feels a little bit scratchy and cheap. There is also no heads-up display on this truck. You can see that's your forward collision alert sensor, which isn't really necessary because you have this big screen over here. This area here is all hard touch. The airbag cover here is soft touch, but this, again, is all hard touch plastic with more of that tech bronze. Hard touch plastic over here. And then some of the switches, you can see, they just don't feel all that great. Just kind of loose and wobbly. I've seen better interiors from GM, so I'm really disappointed with the interior quality in this truck. Now, again, some of you, that may not be a big deal, but for those of you who are spending this kind of money, you may prefer something a little bit more high-tech feel or high quality feeling. Now, you can see the steering wheel is kind of unique to the Hummer. It has the Hummer badge here as opposed to the GMC badge. The steering wheel itself is power, tilt, and telescoping, which is nice. That's the Super Cruise sensor status bar here. There's the camera that watches my face. The horn sounds good. It sounds appropriately loud considering how big this vehicle is. That's for your max regen for the truck. This is your Super Cruise on-off button. You can also adjust the distance, the speed. You can also somewhat change the way these gauges look by going over here. You can also kind of change the way this right screen looks. You can change the layout. You can go to your phone, GPS, music information, the car information and whatnot. You can kind of customize that. That's something that GM's always let you do. And then the display layout, you can see there's like 5 different modes: lunar, clean, sport, off-road, and digital. This is what it looks like in sport. The truck, when they originally delivered it to me, had it in lunar mode, which looks cool. Again, this is allowing you to customize it. This is also the screen in the day setting. There's also a night setting that kind of darkens the screen as opposed to it being a bright white backdrop, which again could be a little bit too bright for some of you. Pushing that button here engages the 18 different camera views that this truck has. You can see it has the full 360 view. You can also look a top-down view. You can also look a top-down from the back. You can also do back. You can do a front view. You can also look underneath the truck. You can see, that's right, you can look underneath to see if you're clearing an obstacle or rock. Those cameras are all waterproof. That's what GM says, and there's a different view over there. That's pretty cool. This is just your straight up underneath view. You can even see the rear wheels. Those are the front wheels turning, and then these are the rear wheels, which again, really cool that they offer that. There's for those of you who are towing, you can show a trailer view. You can show what's exactly in your blind spots and whatnot. So that's all really, really cool stuff that allows you, again, to show the capabilities of this vehicle and all the different tech and whatnot. But overall, the rest of the system here, you can see there's your GPS function, which offers the Android or the Google Map interface, which again has over-the-air updates. It's a cloud-based system. This is the same kind of map display that you're going to see on your computer, which is pretty cool. I love how it also has Google voice commands, as well as you can say things like, "Hey Google, hey Google, take me to the nearest Target."
Target, all right.
And there you go. It finds it for you, and then it tells you exactly how far. It even tells you how much the battery you're going to have left. And this vehicle also has the ability to find chargers from the embedded GPS along your route. So that's all very important stuff when you're driving this vehicle on longer road trips, which, by the way, the range indicator is right there, 322 miles. We have probably around 90% state of charge. It was showing 345 on a full charge earlier today. And then you can see here, toggles control your climate control. You have dual zone climate. You can also adjust the heated and ventilated seat from here. The cooled seat works pretty well. The heated seat works well. It's just a little bit noisy when you have the cooled seat on. There's also a heated steering wheel, which is nice. There's a electronic locking rear diff with a locking front diff as well. And then you have your automatic parallel parking feature, which again is all really nice considering the size of this truck. Your dash vents are over here. You have a phone storage area here, along with your wireless phone charging pad, 2 USB charging ports, and then this controls the 1-speed reduction gear transmission. You basically push that controller there, the toggle, and then kick it all the way back to go to drive, push P to go to park. This again feels relatively sturdy. Here's the cup holders. Again, the lid just feels a little bit cheap, not liking the way that feels. It also kind of jiggles and whatnot. And then your drive mode selector is over here. You can see when you start playing with this, it shows you a really cool graphic because this is made by Unreal Engines. You can see there's a terrain mode, there's a tow haul mode, normal, my mode, and then there's an off-road setting there. And again, I love the graphics. I do find that the screen sometimes is a little slow to respond when I'm starting to turn this dial. You can also adjust the air suspension here, and this is to engage the auto 4-wheel steering, where you can turn it on, off, or go into the crab walk mode by pushing and holding that for 4 seconds. And then this right here is, it says your mode, your mission. I'm not entirely sure what this button does, so let me know in the comment section below if you know what that button actually does for you. Now, this center console area here is nice and padded. There's a little bit of storage here. Open this up, you can see it's huge. This fits all of my camera equipment in there once I put it in there, and then there's a nice little tray that you can pull out. The seats are also pretty comfortable and supportive. I just wish the material felt softer. I don't like the feeling of this. The transparent roof panels, you can see, they are literally plexiglass, and they are supposedly supposed to shade you from the sun and the UV rays, but I find that they're still a little bit too bright in direct sunlight, so that's kind of annoying. Open this up, you can see the glove box is a little bit small, but it's lined with, or it's damped but not lined with felt. But overall, the interior has most of the tech that you'd like. It's just really kind of disappointing in terms of the build quality and the materials, but it very much kind of just feels like a modern interpretation of the old Hummer H2. Moving to the back seat, you can see all of the Hummer EV pickups will come with 4 full-size doors, and you get around 39 inches of legroom back here. That's pretty good considering the old Hummer, I believe, had much less legroom. And then just like other GM trucks, there's this cool little storage area that you can find for both seat backs on both sides. And then you can also lift this up. You can find additional storage over here, which is pretty nice, along with this kind of rubberized floor that allows you to kind of get this whole area dirty if you'd like. There's also the same materials from the front, so at least they didn't skimp there. More of that tech bronze plastic accents. It looks like metal, but it's not. For the rear, there's a nice grab handle here to help shorter drivers like myself get in. But once I'm in here, you can see it's pretty comfortable. It actually sounds kind of echoey back here. I just noticed that getting back here. Again, you have more of those panels that you can basically take off by unlatching that and unlatching this right here, and you basically just kind of pull it out and you have to store it in the front. Back here you can see 3-zone climate control, so it's actually 3, not 2. You have 3-level heated seats, you have rear seat air vents, 2 USB charging ports, and then this window here actually electrically slides down, so you can take the I-bar out from there. This I-bar, however, is not removable. It stays in place. But when you have everything off along with this panel, it really kind of gives you almost that convertible feeling, which is pretty cool. Fold this down, you can see armrests with 2 cup holders, and because this truck is so damn wide, you can easily fit 3 large people across, 3 large adults, so that's definitely a huge plus if you plan to use this as a family vehicle. All right, so here we are finally back in the 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup truck. This truck, this electric super truck, at least what GMC likes to call it, has been one of the most hotly anticipated trucks for a long time. And when I first had a chance to drive this thing, I believe I was out in Arizona earlier this year, I was blown away, but I also wanted more time. So now that GMC has finally given me the time that I was looking for, because I have the truck for a full week, we're gonna go ahead and live with it and put it through our usual battery of tests. Now I'm starting this off with a 98% state of charge. It was showing about 345 miles on a full charge. I've been consistently getting around that mark in real world testing. It's around 60 degrees outside. It's a beautiful fall day. So the fuel economy, or the range, has been pretty impressive. It's beating the 329 that GMC originally claimed when I first drove this thing a few months ago. But I do want to test out the 0 to 60 of this car, and it's best achieved in the WTF watts to freedom mode, which is a little hard to get into, but we're going to actually just launch it here from a stop without using the launch control, because that is probably what most people are going to be able to do in the real world, because that'll take a few seconds to set up. I'll try to do it later on in the video, but we'll just floor it here and see what we can get. Oh, God. Oh, my God. The front end lifts up, and it's almost like we're going into space. 4.73 seconds there, and that's what you're going to get in most of your day-to-day driving, because the Hummer EV only gives you around 835 horsepower in all of the other drive modes. You have to engage watts to freedom to get the full 1,000 horsepower from the 3 electric motors, but 4.7 seconds is still plenty fast. And the way this thing delivers the speed is really nauseating, I want to say, because the body is so damn soft. You're constantly just feeling the bucking of everything whenever you're going, or when you're on the throttle over this vehicle. And unlike most electric cars, this truck actually speeds up. It feels like it's getting faster as you go down the road. But let's try it one more time here. We're not going to use WTF just yet. Oh, my phone literally falls out of the, God. You're literally fighting to keep this thing pointed straight. 5 seconds there, that's with it going more slightly uphill. And this is, again, real world testing. If you're trying to just floor it from a stop, you don't have time all the time to engage the WTF mode. So that's something to keep in mind. I also want you guys to remember, you are still piloting a 9,000 pound vehicle. This is 4.5 to 5 tons. If you got the full size spare in the bed, which this one does not, you can easily add another 500 pounds to this actual vehicle. And it's a heavy beast. Constantly feel the weight of this truck. And it's a little bit nuts considering how heavy the GMC Hummer EV is. And you feel that weight every time you're driving this vehicle. It's just insane. Also, what I really love is the commanding view of the road. Just like the original Hummers, you get a sense that you're just king of the road. That's kind of how it's always been with the Hummer EV. And then with the 4-wheel steering, it allows this truck to have a 37-foot turning radius, which is also kind of crazy if you ask me, to get that kind of turning radius. But let's go ahead and see what we can get here 0 to 60 with the WTF engaged. Now to do that, the wheel has to be pointed straight. You have to double tap the stability control button in sequence, which once you do that, took a second, you can see it does some kind of graphic. It says vehicle will lower, check surroundings, repeated use will accelerate vehicle wear. You have to tell it continue, and then it will start to lower. Now this whole process takes about 30 seconds. So you have to allow it to actually lower. You have to follow the whole theatrics. It shows you literally the Hummer EV on like a drag strip out on the moon, which is kind of cool, but it's still lowering. It's still lowering. All right, now it says brake harder. Now it says floor it. Oh, oh, Jesus. Wow. 3.37 seconds. So that shaved about 1.5 seconds off the 0 to 60 time. And to get it out of watts to freedom, just kind of switch the drive mode here, and that'll take us back to my mode. 3.37 seconds. That's pretty similar to what I got in this truck back when I was out in Arizona when I was first testing it. And holy crap, the fact that this thing can do a sub 3.5 second time. Now, GMC says 3 seconds. I suspect on a prepped surface with stickier, like these BF, or these Goodyear Wrangler mud terrain tires are not designed for that kind of standing still acceleration. They're designed to go off-roading, and all 4 wheels will literally do a burnout when you do that. And that's kind of the coolest thing about the GMC Hummer EV is the fact that all 4 wheels will spin. And then it's terrifying when you're trying to stop, because the brakes on this car, while they are beefy, the fact that it weighs 9,000 pounds, the fact that you're slamming on the brakes, you guys heard when I was trying to stop, it will literally, like, you heard the tires screeching a little bit. It's kind of terrifying because the front lifts up. It's almost like you're going to the moon. And then you have to brake. And for those of you who are not used to this kind of acceleration, seriously, if you own this truck, be careful, because if you do that and there's a bunch of traffic or something, an obstacle in front, literally keep trying to keep the front wheels pointing straight as this thing feels like there's a little bit of torque steer. My phone keeps falling off of the wireless phone charger. I suspect those of you are going to freak out when you have to stop really abruptly, and the brakes on this thing may not be up to snuff. So this is not a vehicle that you're going to want to take to your favorite track. Obviously, for drag racing, it could be fun, but you need to have plenty of space to actually slow down, because you just can't beat the laws of physics. But regardless, I have the vehicle in its My mode, which I customized to be everything in basically normal except for the acceleration. I put that into adrenaline. It has an electric sport vehicle sound as well. The sound that it makes is certainly kind of interesting. It almost makes it sound like it's, you can hear the tires are screeching there a little bit. It kind of has that electric motor noise, but it also has a little bit of like almost like a moon sound, like something like spaceshipy, which is cool. I kind of just wish I could make it louder or softer if I wanted to. I can only just turn it on or off. And then just going down the road, the ride quality in the Hummer EV is something I do want to talk about because we have four-wheel air suspension, and we've got these big fat tires. The vehicle rides okay and it handles fine for considering how big it is. Remember, this is their Ultium platform with the double stacked batteries, really huge 212 kilowatt hour capacity. So you feel the weight every time you go through the corners. The steering is really slow, transmits nothing in terms of feedback, as it should. It's an off-road vehicle with 35-inch mud terrain tires. But what really bothers me is just how noisy this car is. You hear, first of all, the tire noise. There's no engine noise to drown everything else out. So you hear the tire noise. You hear the wind noise from this infinity roof with the transparent panels, which, by the way, it's a sunny day right now. There's not a cloud in the sky, and I will say that I like the sun. I like to get, the sun on my face. I tan really easily, but that sun is a little too intense. I actually wish the transparent roof panels were a little bit more dark tinted. GMC says that it helps protect you against the UV rays, which I believe them, but for those of you who don't like the sun, you're gonna hate this. So I suspect you're not gonna wanna go for the Edition 1 that basically comes standard with this. You can take these removable panels off if you'd like and store them in the front. Which gives you kind of an almost open air experience, kind of similar to the Jeep Gladiator. That's really the only truck that allows you to do that. But what really bothers me is because of this transparent roof and the infinity roof, you have a lot of creaks and rattles in this truck, and that's really, really awful to hear in a vehicle that costs six figures. Like every time I go over a bump, I just hear the roof rattling and creaking a little bit. I hear a rattle coming from the door. The build quality in this truck, I mean, it could be an earlier pre-production spec, but this is an Edition 1. It's not great considering the price tag. It's almost very GM, very Hummer, because I feel like the original Hummer, or the H2 Hummer, was kind of like that as well. But it's something that you have to get used to. I guess you can forget about it if you take off the roof panels, but again, every time I go over a bump or something, I hear the roof creaking, I hear the tires droning, I hear the wind noise rushing over. At highway speeds above 70 miles an hour, this thing is just loud. You have to talk very loudly over everything to kind of hear everything. Now on the highway, I do love the Super Cruise. I was using that earlier. It's amazing. It auto lane changes for me. It keeps this massive 87-inch wide truck centered in the lane perfectly on interstates, which is fantastic. So the tech in this car is amazing. The electric drivetrain is amazing. What suffers is the interior quality and the build quality to me. So that's kind of a disappointment. And the efficiency. In my weeks worth of testing, I've been averaging 1.5 miles per kilowatt. That's horrible. That's literally half what I get in like a Ford F-150 Lightning or a Mustang Mach-E. You can do almost 4 miles to the more miles per kilowatt hour in an Ioniq 5. So really atrocious efficiency, kind of what you expect out of a Hummer, but I guess it's still better versus this being a gas vehicle. But the other thing you have to get used to is this thing gets literally attention everywhere. Everybody stares at you. They either love this thing or they're probably giving you a dirty look. I've seen an equal share of both, but overall, you can't deny just how stupidly awesome this thing is. I don't know if it's stupidly awesome or just plain stupid, but that kind of reminds me that it's a Hummer in every way possible. It just happens to be an electric Hummer. So after spending a full week with the reincarnated GMC Hummer pickup truck, I have to say, when I first had a chance to drive this thing, I just thought it was ridiculous. It was excessive, just what I expected a Hummer to be. And after spending a full week with this thing, that basically just solidifies my initial impressions of this truck. It is just something that just gets everyone's attention every time you get out on the road. Literally going to the grocery store or going to the gym kind of just makes you feel like you're a Marvel superhero because everybody stares at you in this vehicle. Now, I will say living with this truck is kind of cumbersome. It is always reminding you just how big, how wide, and how heavy it is. The ridiculous speed that you get from the 3 electric motors is also really almost nausea-inducing, especially if you try the WTF launch control, which I don't recommend you do on public roads because of how fast this thing builds speeds, but also how cumbersome it is to actually slow the truck down. Handling is perfectly fine. You always remember, like I said, the weight. The steering isn't great. In terms of a truck, if you want to do truck things with it, its towing capacity at 7,500 7,500 pounds is not great. Things like the F-150 Lightning do around 10,000 pounds along with the Rivian R1T. However, I have seen a lot of articles where when you're actually towing this vehicle, it will cut the range in half. So that's kind of where electric trucks still have some work to do in terms of real world towing and real world range. I was impressed with the real world range with this thing. In my week with it without actually towing, I was getting around 340 to 350 miles on a full charge, which, by the way, this thing cost around $20 to $25 to fully recharge at my home. That's what current electric prices at around 15 cents a kilowatt. So again, it's still a lot cheaper than if this thing had a supercharged V8 or whatnot, which probably would cost around $150 to $200 to refuel. So at around 10% the cost, it is still a rather cost-effective vehicle, and it's a good thing that GMC decided to make it electric as opposed to making it gas. But remember, it's still grossly inefficient, especially by electric vehicle standards. But as a practical vehicle, it's certainly usable. The back seat and the interior is roomy, although I really don't like how cheap the interior feels. The build quality of this one here and the cheap materials kind of make me feel like I'm in a vehicle that isn't worthy of its six-figure price tag. But again, the technology, the battery tech, the driver assistance with the Super Cruise certainly makes up for it, and also the wow factor. This thing just gets seriously so much attention everywhere you take it. Now, speaking of which, if you are looking to get your hands on this truck, they are built at GM's Factory Zero plant, I believe, in Michigan. And this truck right now, you basically have to order it and wait, because only the Edition 1s are being delivered at the moment, which is the most expensive version, and they have basically a fully loaded price of around $110,000. Now, there are a couple of accessories that you can add in that's going to jack up the price, but later on next year, GMC will introduce a cheaper 2X with just dual motors that'll be around $96,000, and then in 2024, you can get a baser version that'll start at around $86,000. Now, I suspect those prices could change because, as you guys know, with the supply chain issues and inflation, every price just seems to change without really any notice. So $86,000 is the base. This one here is $110,000. And sadly, the Hummer EV does not qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit, even though this is built in North America, because it is too expensive. Remember, there is a cap now on MSRP. You can't go over $80,000. And even in 2023, when GM will once again qualify for the tax credit, the Hummer is just too expensive. So you have to factor that in if you are looking to get one of these. But if you are in the market for an electric super truck, I do think that the Hummer kind of lives up to that badge, especially with all of the theatrics and the cool factors about the tech and the speed and the charging and the range and whatnot and the crab walk mode and everything. However, I do think that GMC could have done a better job with the interior and making it feel less cheap, and this one here having a couple of issues with the build quality. Those are that's issues that are mostly centered around my particular test unit. So let me know in the comment section below if you guys own this truck and you have a slightly better luck with the build quality as opposed to what this truck is showing. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2022 GMC Hummer EV pickup truck. If you're also looking to see the latest vehicles I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.